questions.
I missed you yesterday, and I cried that you weren't here because you just told me to say that before we came on air. I'm sorry. I apologize, Stephen A. I had to say what she told me to say.
I bribed him, Stephen A. I have some Diet Mountain Dew. Stephen A. is in Chicago. How were the kids, Stephen A.?
The kids loved Stevie A, and Stevie A loved them back. They did tell me to tell y'all hello. It was a beautiful evening at the University of Illinois. The students were absolutely wonderful to me. I appreciate it.
All right, good for you.
And allow me to add to this, Carrie.
Yes.
Stevie A looks good in his cowboy blue today because we're about to talk about my Dallas Cowboys. Way to go. Thank you for that.
He's changing
the cowboy
his
blue.
Pick.
Is that
He's
what
changing
this
his
is?
pick.
Yes.
I got to change my shirt before the show's over.
Oh, so you're not going with them to win the NFC East. All right, so that's we'll talk about that then in just a few moments. Coming up on the show today, the Steelers have brought back James Harrison, but with everything that's going on in the league in terms of the climate, is that a good idea? We'll talk about that in just a few moments. And is it time for the Packers to panic? Someone at the desk believes it is. But first, let's talk about the Cowboys. More drama, but in a good way. Cornerback Morris Claiborne walked out on practice and leaves the training facility Tuesday after being told Orlando Scandrick was replacing him in the starting lineup. The demotion came a few hours after Jerry Jones said that the third-year cornerback had not been worth the 6th pick in the 2012 draft.
Is he what we had hoped for at this point when we drafted him with the 6th pick and gave up a pick to go up to the 6th pick to get him? No. But he's going to be a good player.
All right. According to a team source, Claiborne has rejoined the Cowboys and is participating in team meetings this morning. He's expected to play on Sunday. Considering all of that, Skip Bayless, how big of a distraction do you believe this will be for the Cowboys?
Stephen A. Smith, I'm going to give you permission before I start to laugh at what I'm about to say. But I believe what just happened will ultimately be a very good thing for not only Mo Claiborne, but for my Dallas Cowboys. I believe it will be team unifying instead of potentially team wrecking. This was a very ugly situation that needed to be dragged out into the national spotlight. It needed to come to a head publicly, and did it ever? Because did Mo Claiborne ever just hit bottom as he needed to? As we just heard, Jerry Jones on a radio show yesterday acknowledged finally, publicly, he's not exactly what we had hoped for, to put it mildly. Tim McMahon, who writes for ESPN flat out called him, in a piece that's up right now, the biggest bust in Cowboys history. Mo Claiborne, biggest bust in Cowboy history. Now, that is very debatable. I give you Billy Cannon Jr., I give you Rod Hill, but that's for another day. But what is not debatable, Stephen A., is Mo Claiborne, for the 6th pick in the draft, coming out of LSU as a first-team All-American that I loved in the draft. I'll be the first to admit it, has been a disaster for my Dallas Cowboys. You know that cornerbacks can lose their confidence faster and almost more terminally in a professional sense than any other position on the football field, and he has completely lost his confidence. He got toasted the other day in St. Louis by a third-string undrafted free agent quarterback. 5 catches he gave up for 108 yards and a 51-yard touchdown. He did pull off the game-clinching interception on a terrible overthrow by one Austin Davis. But after the game, what I did love about it, Mo Claiborne was the first to admit, I stunk it up. And I thought that was very positive self-criticism and self-analysis. You know this, Stephen A. Pro Football Focus had him ranked 80th among cornerbacks as a rookie, 88th in his second year among all cornerbacks, and 91st through 3 games this year. So he has been a bust. Maybe not the biggest bust, but I love it that this happened now. Orlando Scandrick is clearly the better player and should start, but I think Mo Claiborne will, through this humbling process, turn into a pretty good football player.
Well, you're being optimistic and very, very kind. I'm not going to laugh about the Dallas Cowboys this year. I'm going to save it for when it's really worth it, to be quite honest with you.
Which it won't be the rest of this year.
I look at Morris Claiborne and I say to myself, he has been a disaster. He has come up short. I don't think this is going to be a distraction at all, however, because I think it falls right in line with who the Cowboys are, the circus kind of atmosphere that they continuously and perpetually are associated with. This is who they are. Distractions like this come up all the time. time. I don't expect this to be any different. I don't expect this to be really a distraction at all, simply because you're talking about a guy who thus far has proven he really can't play on this level, to the level that you would expect a first-round, 6th overall pick to perform out of LSU. He just has come up short. It is just that simple. If I'm Jerry Jones and I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I laugh this off. I come across as if this was just nothing at all, okay? And I sit there and I quietly go about the business of trying to trade this dude, trying to get rid of him. Why do I say that, Skip Bayless? For you to be inept, to be somebody that comes up so flagrantly short in terms of your responsibilities, and then to literally have the gall to walk out and skip practice. Why? Because you're upset that the ramifications of your ineptitude is that you get benched. In the world of professional sports, you've shown me that you don't have the stomach to play this position, and you don't have the stomach to do what needs to be done. Do I believe that this guy could ultimately go somewhere else and perform? I definitely do. But in the bubble that is the Dallas Cowboys, Big D, the billion-dollar playpen, Jerry Jones, the star on the helmet at midfield, the cheerleaders, and all of this other stuff, all the pomp and circumstances associated with the Dallas Cowboys being America's team, who they are, this dude wilts beneath that pressure. I think if he were somewhere else, he'd be a lot better. But because he's in that bubble that is the Dallas Cowboys, a team that was ranked dead last in yards allowed last year, 30th against the pass, that ain't too much. Even though they've improved this year, he certainly hasn't. I think it's one of those situations. It's almost like baseball with the Yankees or basketball with the Knicks, being in that Mecca. And I'm calling Dallas the Mecca when it comes to football.
It is.
Certain dudes cannot handle it. And Morris Claiborne appears to be somebody who simply can't handle it. And when he was called to the carpet for it by being benched, the first thing he did was pout and go home and skip a day at work. If anybody needs extra days at work, it would be him. How dare you take off a day from work? These are the kind of things. These are the kind of things you can't tolerate, man. Some people have it. Some people don't. Oh. Some people are made for small market confines. He appears to be one of those dudes. So, I hope I'm wrong, but he appears to be one of those dudes.
You sound like if you were Jerry Jones, you would have cut him this morning. Am I right?
No, because a first-round pick, 6th overall, I've got to save face to some degree, particularly if I'm the president, the GM, the wannabe coach, all of this other stuff that Jerry Jones is. I have to sit there and try to get some level of compensation for him. So what I would try to do is massage the ego a little bit, make him feel a little bit better, and behind the scenes, I'm going to get rid of his behind. It's just that simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on the phone, and I'm going to try to see what level of compensation I can get for this kid so I can get him out of here, because he clearly can't handle Big D. That's the issue here. I'm not saying Morris Claiborne can't play, but if you are in that bubble and you know that you are coming up short and you are not producing and you get benched, you're supposed to be able to handle that because you know your work warranted their decision. Instead, he pouted and act like he got some kind of a reprimand that he didn't deserve when he knows full well he deserved it. You want to act like that? You need to go. You could play in the league, but you can't play here.
Okay, I agree. This is a sink or swim moment for the former 6th pick in the draft. I believe he will swim. I don't think he should be shipped out. But I have one final question for you, Mr. Smith. I'm going to put you on a Wednesday early hot seat, a game that we won't pick until Friday. But you remember what the New Orleans Saints did in New Orleans on a Sunday night a year ago to my Dallas Cowboys?
Yes,
you remember 49-17, during which my Cowboys gave up an NFL record 40 first downs. That's impossible. 40 first downs? How do you do that?
Are you sure that's correct?
That's what this says.
Okay.
625 yards. I don't even know how you do that. The Cowboys were 0 for 9 on 3rd down on their side of the ball, so that helped contribute to 40 first downs for New Orleans. Given this backdrop of this uncertainty swirling around Mo Claiborne, the distraction that it could be, Are you giving my Dallas Cowboys any shot at Jerry World in a rematch of a year ago? Zero shot?
Zero.
I love this.
Zero.
I love this.
Already?
I needed this.
This
Stephen
is
A, it's
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
We don't need a Friday.
Yeah, okay.
The Dallas Cowboys will lose Sunday against New Orleans.
All
It's
right.
in New Orleans, right? It's game in New Orleans?
No, it's in Jerry World.
It's in Dallas?
Yes.
Oh, damn,
you
I
changed
forgot
now.
about
So you
that.
changed your mind. Okay.
I forgot about
yeah,
that.
don't let them do that to you.
I got to think about that a little bit. I thought the game was in New Orleans because I was looking forward to another blowout. Now that I know it's going to be in Dallas.
You got it ready for the fourth.
Yeah.
I'm good. Listen. Dallas is going to lose the game in all likelihood, but I was thinking blowout. Probably going to be closer.
Closer?
All right. Listen, Skip, did you mention this, that Orlando Scandrick would have probably started if he didn't have the 2-game suspension? Do you believe that? Did you mention that?
I didn't. I said he's a better player. And by the way, not only was we had him on the show, remember, at the ESPYs, good kid, but not only was he their best defensive player last year, but he was their best during training camp this year.
Yeah.
So sure, he's going to start over Mo Claiborne.
And he probably would have.
He would have anyway,
suspended.
Except for the what got reduced to the 2 games,
which would have been 4. Okay. According to a team source, Mo's fine. His ego is bruised, Stephen A. Let's move on. The NFL will not further discipline Washington's Chris Baker after determining the D lineman, his hit on Nick Foles during Sunday's game was legal. Troy Vincent, the NFL's executive vice president of football operations, said this: Baker didn't do anything wrong with that hit. When you look at the rule, he didn't do anything illegal. People can say it's a cheap shot, and you can talk about whether it might fall under unsportsmanlike conduct. But when you know the rule and you look at the play, he didn't hit him in the head. He didn't hit him in the neck. We looked at it. I looked at it very closely. He's not going to be fined for that. Skip, you called it a cheap shot. Stephen A said it was good football.
He did.
He didn't have an issue with it at all. Now that the league has determined it is legal, what's your take on that ruling?
Obviously, Stephen A. Smith, I was shocked over this. I was shocked, and I was very disappointed in a man I respect, in Troy Vincent, coming down with this view and this decision on this play. This was not only a cheap shot, but by the way I read this rule, this was a finable foul and a 15-yard penalty. And again, it's a fairly short description here. I'm going to read it quickly. It is a foul if a player initiates unnecessary contact against a player in a defenseless posture, including a quarterback at any time after a change of possession. It looked like an interception. It got overruled. He trapped the ball. You know, he didn't catch it cleanly.
Nope.
But Stephen A., that was unnecessary contact against a quarterback in a defenseless position or posture after a turnover. I do not care that the blow didn't strike Nick Foles in the neck or head. That's irrelevant to me. He lowered the boom on a Nick Foles who was looking the other way as the play was ending. The tackle had almost been concluded as the boom was lowered by Chris Baker on the quarterback, Nick Foles. And Nick Foles went down hard. It looked like his left shoulder, non-throwing shoulder, was hurt on the play to the point that the broadcasters were wondering if Nick Foles could continue in the football game. That's how cheap a shot that was and how dangerous, unnecessary contact that was by Chris Baker. And don't tell me, Mr. Baker, you didn't know that was a quarterback that you were going after in a defenseless posture. Come on, Troy Vincent. That's an outrageous misdiagnosis of this play. That should have been a 15-yard penalty, and he should be fined today for it.
Skip Bayless. I don't care that you don't care. It does not matter to me, Skip Bayless. I completely, wholeheartedly agree with Troy Vincent. He made the right call as the executive VP in the NFL league office. Wasn't a head shot, wasn't a neck shot. It was a football play. When you're on the field and you're a quarterback, you got no business running towards the action. You know everybody's chomping at the bit to get a lick on you because the quarterbacks in today's age is so protected I mean, they might as well take them and take off their uniform and wrap them in cottonelle tissue. It's just ridiculous how protected they are. You had an opportunity to get a hit on the quarterback, and you did it. Bravo. By the way, I don't know if you've seen Twitter. I don't know if you've seen the Google alerts that have come out there with everybody sitting there. Stephen A's making headlines. Stephen A's applauding the hit for Baker on Nick Foles. Yes, I am. And by the way, keep the headlines coming. I'm not fazed by it. Just spell my name correctly. The Stephen is with the PH, not the V, okay? Stephen A is applauding Baker popping Foles. I don't mind at all. It does not bother me. It is a football play. And as far as I'm concerned, that's right, it is. Excuse me, a guy is running on the field. He's lollygagging towards the action. A big defensive lineman sees an opportunity to get a hit on a quarterback to cave his chest in and knock him silly. And that's that's exactly what he did. If you're a defensive lineman, what are you chomping at the bit to do more than anything? To get your hands on a quarterback as best you can. You don't want to ruin his career or anything, but if you can knock him out of the game, that's a badge of honor for defensive linemen. That's what Baker was doing. I think he's lying when he says he didn't know it was Foles. Yeah. But who cares? Who cares? In the end, it wasn't a shot to the knees. Yeah. It wasn't a shot to the head or the neck. It was a shot right there near the midsection, caved his chest in, took the air out of him, almost knocked him out of the game. Bravo. That's what football is.
I'm Googling it right now, Stephen A.
I have a question.
Google alert. The PH, not the V.
Stephen A.
Spell
Smith
my name right.
applauding the hit. I'm looking for it.
Don't bother me at all.
Okay.
Don't bother me at all.
Was Nick Foles in position to make a potential tackle on the play?
Not at all.
No, not at all.
Question for you. All your years of watching football, before these new rules were implemented where the NFL sometimes resembles lingerie football, back in the day when you were covering it at the game for decades, let me ask you a question, Skip. You'd have had a problem with that then? Wasn't this normal? The second the quarterback, wasn't it open season on the quarterbacks?
Yeah, because there was never a rule against it. And I despised it because the quarterback, as we all agree, is by far the most important position on the field. The game revolves around healthy quarterbacks. Injured quarterbacks, they obviously hurt fantasy football. Yes. I don't care about fantasy football, but I do care about my National Football League. And when Tom Brady is gone for a year, it hurts the NFL. If Nick Foles was lost for the rest of the year, it would have hurt the National Football League. I'm sorry, and real quick, you bring up these plays. These didn't involve quarterbacks, but I go back to a Marty Lyons hit. This is way before your time, and a Warren Sapp hit, which was in your time on Green Bay. I think it was on Tauscher, put him in the hospital. These are turnover plays where all of a sudden the action reverses and is going the other way, and guys don't have their head on a swivel because they're looking at the ball, and they get absolutely annihilated, unfairly so in my opinion, by an opponent across the line of scrimmage who is just spoiling for that shot on them.
In fairness to you and your point, let me say this. I totally agree with you about the importance of protecting the quarterback position. I respect that. You want these guys to be playing in the game. You don't want them taken away from it. I do understand that point, Skip Bayless, and I do understand that there were rules that were necessary because it does. How brave do you have to be when you're getting free shots at a quarterback? It's not like you're boxing and he gets to hit you back. He's throwing and you coming at him. So nobody deserves cookies for that. But I am saying that the NFL has gone through such strenuous levels to protect the quarterback that, to me, they've made them even more of a target because you're starving just to get your hands on them because of how strident they've been in penalizing everything and anybody. I mean, you've got guys that they feel like they'll get penalized for passing gas in the quarterback's direction. This is how bad it is. So to me, when that kind of stuff, when that environment is created, then you have a situation like this, you get an opportunity to get a free look at a quarterback. I don't blame you for taking it. That's all I'm saying. Now, he hit him in the head or he hit him in the knees, I would have had a totally different mentality. But a nice free shot in the whole chest area, I got no problems with that, Skip. It was a solid hit.
Right
it's
here.
football. This is what it is.
Stephen A. Smith applauding illegal hit on Nick Foles. Quote, "You got what you deserve."
Oh, that's NewJersey.com.
That was
You made
NJ.com.
it. You're big time.
Please.
Way to go.
They're all over the place with these ridiculous people. I appreciate them giving me the headlines, though.
Okay.
Like I said, Stephen is spelled with a PH,
They got it right
not
here.
a V.
Yeah.
And the A, the initial A in the middle. Keep bringing it. Thank y'all so much.
What does the A stand for?
Anthony.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Stephen Anthony.
You got him to admit that publicly.
I didn't know that. I like it.
I do all the time. Y'all just never ask.
No. Okay.
I like Anthony. I'm going to start calling you Anthony.
I think we should. Anthony,
Mama would like that. Mama would like that.
Okay.
All right. James Harrison officially rejoined the Steelers on Tuesday morning, signing a contract in the same building where he announced his retirement less than 3 weeks ago. The Steelers brought him back for a second stint after placing second-year outside linebacker Jarvis Jones on IR.
We need to see what he is capable of doing before we etch out any roles for him or others. Right now, Arthur Mose is the starter because he finished the last football game and played well. We'll see what James is capable of doing and go from there.
I think that's great. The attitude that we all know that James Harrison has, his will, his desire, his determination, his work ethic. I just think it's going to be great for that defense, for the young defense, to have another guy. I know he's still got it in the tank because I know how hard James works, and I'm excited to have him back out there.
All right, considering the climate in the NFL concerning domestic violence, Coach Tomlin felt the need to address James Harrison's DV arrest in 2008 when he was charged with simple assault and criminal mischief after a fight with his girlfriend. Harrison later apologized for the incident and the charges were dropped. So here's the landscape. Arrested, charged, or even if on appeal, see Greg Hardy, John Dwyer. These players are not playing. So, Skip Bayless, let me ask you this question, and we talked about the landscape of the NFL right now. Are you okay with the Steelers bringing back Harrison?
Kerry, Stephen A. Yes, I guess I'm okay, because this did happen, obviously, 6 years ago. And if Mike Tomlin is to be trusted and believed here, James Harrison has made amends with his lady, as Mike calls her, and that their relationship, according to Mike Tomlin, is better. So I'm going to roll with the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers, out of sheer desperation, brought James Harrison back out of retirement. But real quick, Stephen A., I got to go one other direction with you. Bear with me on this. This is what I wasn't okay with yesterday. It looked like Mike Tomlin had taken a selfie of him and James. Did we show that?
We did. Going to break. We did. We have it too.
Okay, we could show it up, show it again. But it was your basic ha-ha, yuck it up selfie with James that he posted. I don't know if it was Twitter or Instagram.
He posted
or
it
both.
on Twitter, yeah.
And with a funny caption, Debo is back, the Friday movie reference. There goes the neighborhood. Turning this into sort of a joyous occasion that James is back. A guy that obviously Mike Tomlin loves. He won a ring with James. They've been to a lot of battles together. This was not, to me, a joyous moment. I think that picture is a bad look for a cornerstone franchise that is Pittsburgh. And for a coach that I know we both have huge respect for. And what was Mike Tomlin thinking after he felt compelled to address what happened in 2008, domestic violence arrest, then to post that picture, a yuck picture? It just hit me the wrong way. It wasn't the right time or place for that picture. So that's just my 2 cents.
You're entitled to your 2 cents. I'm entitled to mine, and I'm entitled to completely and totally disagree with you on that notion. I think that that's stretching it a little bit. I'm not trying to diminish where you're coming from, Skip Bayless. I can respect that. But this is not something that happened just a few weeks ago or a few months ago. This is an incident stemming from back in 2008. Simple assault and criminal mischief obviously is what it is. He was arrested for it. That is something to be taken seriously, and I totally understand that. But if I recall correctly, there were an additional 3 or 4 seasons after that he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers before having to leave in 2013 because he and the Steelers couldn't agree on a reduction in pay. That's why he was gone. That's why he ended up in Cincinnati. That's why, combination of not really gelling in that 4-3 defense combined with being away for his kids, obviously that's going to be a demoralizing effect that it could have on anybody. That is the problem with James Harrison in recent memory. This incident that took place was back in 2008. The charges were ultimately dropped, and on top of it all, he played for years and years and years. America has to make up its mind. If you're going to be the land of second chances, then be the land of second chances. To sit here and to harken back, I understand the times that we're living in. I'm sensitive to that. And I'm sensitive to the heightened level of sensitivity that we all have because of Ray Rice, because of Ray McDonald, because of Greg Hardy, and on a different note, because of Adrian Peterson. But that's what they did now. That doesn't mean that we should look at James Harrison, harken back to 2008, which is 6 years ago, and suddenly decide that because of that, combined with the climate, that Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's down Jarvis Jones, who's down Shazier, who's down Ike Taylor, that brings in, because he's only got 3 outside linebackers on his roster right now, in Moats and Harrison, and I forgot the third individual. But my point to you is that you're down men. You need a capable and able body, and you're talking about a dude that you've added to the squad that played 10 years for this organization in this uniform, that's considered a workout warrior, a leader, somebody that's going to get guys' mind right as it pertains to going out there and doing all you can to be the best that you can possibly be. And we're sweating the fact that his coach, who has to be happy that he's there because you need an able, capable veteran body, took a selfie with him. I mean, I think we're reaching here. I think that's a bit excessive. James Harrison got arrested in 2008. That is not a good thing. We understand that. He was involved in some form of domestic violence, which is why he was charged with simple assault and criminal mischief following the fight with his girlfriend in 2008. But he played in 2009. He played in 2010. He played in 2011. He played in 2012. Then went to Cincinnati. Played in 2013. Okay? And now here he is back with the Steelers. And we're leaning on something that happened in 2008 to say that a selfie with his coach is taken out of context and it makes you uncomfortable? I don't get that.
Okay, that's fine. You gave your 2 cents. I gave mine. Let's get Carrie's.
Yeah, okay. He doesn't. We'll get to the selfie. Stephen A., I actually had a conversation with Jerome Bettis, and it's interesting. He's saying exactly what you're saying. They had no choice but to actually call him up. They had no other opportunity. As far as him playing again.
Well, I mean, they did have a choice. I mean, they could have just gone a whole different. They could have gone after.
He knows the schemes.
Okay,
he said it was just easier to put him in, and they can start playing and try to fill that hole that Jarvis left open. So I like the idea of giving him a second chance because it makes sense. You're right. It's 2008. He does deserve an opportunity. He and the girl are still together. The woman, they're still together. They've had a child since then. The relationship seems to be on the mend.
That was a
second child. So I like the idea of giving him another opportunity. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm okay with this move. Go ahead, Stephen A.
I'm not implying that you're saying this, but even if he wasn't with his girlfriend, it doesn't matter.
That's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
The fact of the matter is we have to make a decision. Certainly, no one should condone domestic violence. We all understand that. But unless somebody's going to be incarcerated for years and years and years and considered just the dregs of our society, at some point in time, we're going to repeatedly have the conversation as to whether or not you're going to be willing to give people second chances.
Now, do you?
And in James Harrison's case, that's 6 years ago.
Yeah, and he deserves a second chance. But do you understand why that selfie hit Skip wrong? Do you understand why he may feel like it's a little off?
I don't get that. Not the selfie. I don't get that. Mike Tomlin is the football coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin addressed the issue because of the climate that we're in. So he addressed it as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers because there was no way to avoid that subject. But he does have a personal relationship with James Harrison. He is desperately needed on the Pittsburgh Steelers in the mind's eye of Mike Tomlin. And it happened in 2008. So Mike Tomlin is perfectly within his right, and it's perfectly okay for him to take a selfie with a guy that the organization has welcomed back. And consider the fact that the Rooney family, who is class personified, and certainly as it pertains to African Americans, just the best of the best as far as I'm concerned, they are the organization that welcomed him back as well. And welcomed him back after it happened, after everything happened in 2008.
I'm with you on the 2008. I mean, we all know that if today's punishment had been enforced in 08, he would have been gone for 6 games, James Harrison.
Wait, if he had done it in 2014.
Yeah, that's what I said. In today's climate.
But there's nothing. There's nobody that's being punished from 5-6 years ago or whatever the case may be.
Okay. But here's my point. How many NFL coaches take selfies with players? It's not a usual occurrence. Seriously, I don't think it's typical.
Is that normal?
And yet, Stephen A., think about this. Think about the climate that we're in. This was a little bit of a somber occasion to me that he felt the need to address what he should have and had to address about James's past. And then to go to the locker room and pose with James Harrison giving it this, it's just a bad look for the franchise. You could wait on that. That's not a smart thing to do in this climate. In this climate.
At this time.
And real quick, one other point.
Okay.
Remember, James Harrison was never any angel in other ways as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Do you remember the 2011 Men's Journal piece in which he was pictured with the pistols across his bare chest?
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
And it was called Confessions of an NFL Hitman.
Okay.
And,
Go ahead.
And he called Goodell in the piece a crook and a puppet, which is fine. But look, James Harrison, he epitomized that what do you call it, that Rough Rider mentality, as you like to call it, of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that nastiness on defense, that bad to the boneness on defense. He personified that. And I'm sure that Mike Tomlin would hope he could bring back a little touch of that, just a taste of that, to this defense that may be lacking that kind of thing. But again, that was his reputation in the past. So do you want to celebrate his return in this climate? I'm sorry.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. What you just said is so wrong. And I'm going to tell you why, Skip Bayless. Number one, you and I both have done photo shoots. You know good and damn well that magazine said, do this. Give us this pose.
Okay, sure, but
you're
did.
the hitman. Time out.
I wouldn't do that.
We've done. Listen, but Skip, you're not a football player.
Okay.
And you're not a hitman on a football field, which James Harrison was. So, again, you can't take a magazine photo knowing that these photo shoots ask you to do certain things. You and I both have been a part of photo shoots, and there were things that we did that we didn't necessarily want to do. We sitting there like, and when is this over? Can y'all hurry up, please? Damn. So don't hold that against them. Number two, okay, you are a hitman on the football field. This is who you are. To use that magazine and to bring up, he feels what he felt about Roger Goodell. I thought he was wrong. You thought he was wrong. We both thought it was beyond the pale. But considering that the man had been fined in excess of $100,000 by Roger Goodell, I do think that is justification for disliking somebody. If they take that much money out of your pocket. So even though we thought it was beyond the pale, we did understand its origin. So to take that, the magazine photo, and that, his quotes about Goodell, and then add that and lump it in with, the issue with domestic violence in 2008. Come on, man. It's like, that's just not fair. That's just not fair.
All right. We leave it there. Gentlemen. I was busy looking up Stephen A. clips right now. Sorry about that. Moving on.
Is he trending?
You're trending, Stephen A.
Of course. Did they do it with the PH?
They did do it with the PH.
With the middle initial A. All those bloggers out there, all the haters, just spell my name right. That's all I ask.
All the haters. If you're going to spell my name right and you're going to hate me,
you know what's trending?
Right.
Stephen Anthony Smith is trending.
Anthony's trending. ESPN.com has Week 4 NFL Power Rankings. Take a look. They're on the screen there. Seahawks are at the top after an overtime win against Denver at home, which takes them to 2-1. Seattle lost to the Chargers in San Diego. Skip's prediction, and then handily beat the Packers in Week 1 when Aaron Rodgers was not Aaron Rodgers, just bad. Nate, you live in Seattle, and you play for the Seahawks, so we're putting you on the hook. Thanks for joining us, by the way.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Nate Burleson, free agent, hanging out with us here. Here's the question. Do you believe, in your honest opinion, you can't give us Homer, is Seattle as good as they were last year?
Before I answer that question, I heard Stephen A. Smith say something about the NFL resembling the LFL. I'm just going to tell you, I felt some type of way about that, but we will address that once we get off the air because you kind of attacked my league. But it's cool, though. I'm going to let that ride. Now,
you would need to on this show, but go ahead.
Getting back to the Seahawks, no, they're not as good as they were last year. Offense seems to be pretty consistent.
Right.
Seems to be the same. I think last year, through 3 weeks, it was 86 points they scored. This year, 83. Defense, on the other hand, they've only given up 27 points last year up to this point. Now it's 66, and that's a big difference given the fact that their defense is their strength, or was known as their strength. So the certain sense of invincibility that they had in 2013, they just don't have it. And I see teams approaching them in that sense. Not so much Peyton. Peyton and the Broncos didn't seem as if they had the rhythm they wanted, but Phillip Rivers sure wasn't scared, talked about it, played like it. And I think for the rest of the season, most teams going in are going to attack them that way. Not taking it a knock against the champions, but once you're the champions, it's similar to the Jay-Z and Kanye album. You got to watch the throne, and everybody's shooting for the throne right now. And they're just not as good as they were.
Stephen A., he says teams don't just seem as scared. Invincibility factor no longer there. Your take?
Well, I definitely think that's the case with Seattle. It's not to say that Seattle is not supremely talented and worthy and not worthy of being the champions that they are. But anytime you're the champion, people are going to be emboldened to go against you because they want to knock you off your perch. And so that's what they're faced with right now. Not to mention the fact that, again, even though their offense, as far as I'm concerned, is much improved because you see Percy Harvin in that lineup from opening day doing his thing, and the combination of Percy Harvin. And I love this kid Lockett. I love what I've seen from him as well. And, of course, you still have Doug Baldwin there. I just like what I'm seeing from them, and the beast mode himself, Marshawn Lynch. We all know. And Russell Wilson is just playing at a very high level. But defensively, I think losing Clemens and Red Bryant to Jacksonville, I think that's messed with them a little bit because even though you still have the crew that they have, you got Averill over there now with the Legion of Boom. You got Thomas and Chancellor at your safety spot. You got Maxwell and Sherman at your corners. You just look at these boys in terms of the kind of pressure they're capable of putting on you. Seattle is legit, no doubt, but they don't have the depth that they once had in the front seven. And so you do find yourself having the mentality, just chip away, stay in the game, and you'll have a chance. And that's what we saw Denver do this past weekend. So as a result of that reality, the fact is you look at Seattle and you know they're still formidable. You know that they're lethal. But at the same time, you believe that they could be had, particularly if you can get them away from Seattle.
Stephen A., I figured that you were going to say that Richard Sherman's problem so far has been he hasn't eaten enough Oberto beef jerky.
You thought that was his argument?
I thought that was coming, but
okay.
I didn't hear it, so I thought I'd set you up for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the little voice in his stomach.
Yeah,
I'll talk
he's
to him
not
about
listening
that.
to that little voice enough. Okay, back to the question. Silly me, I think Seattle's a little better than it was a year ago. And I called that game at San Diego before the year. I said they're going to lose that game because nobody competes the way Phillip Rivers can compete.
True.
They were all over him all day. And I know, I've told Stephen A., I think they missed Red Bryant and Clemens, maybe for like senior leadership in the locker room as much as pass rush, but they are missing it a little bit. But Bennett and Averill and those guys, they were all over Phillip Rivers. And he was ducking and dodging and throwing little sidearm flips to Antonio. I don't know how he was doing it, but he pulled it off. And they just played keep away the whole game from a Seattle offense that is clearly, to me, better than it was last year, just because the young quarterback just gets a little better every game. To me, he's playing, as Stephen A. said, at an extremely high level.
Yes.
And yet, the other day against Peyton and company, they're up 17-3 at half, and they just took their foot off the gas. I don't know what got into them. I don't know what got into Darrell Bevell because he's got all those weapons, starting with Percy Harvin. And in one possession, as I pointed out on Monday in the fourth quarter, they went 4 targets to, wait a second, Brian Walters? You know little Brian Walters, the punt returner?
Yeah,
they
19.
targeted him 4 times. And I'm saying, where's Nate Burleson? They might as well sign him.
Right away.
Nate, get him back. If that's what you're down to, if you don't think Curse and Baldwin, and I don't know what happens to Percy Harvin, he just disappears for long stretches of the game. I don't know if he goes in the doghouse. I don't know if he's nicked.
Fatigue, maybe?
Maybe fatigue. I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to save him from himself because he plays like kamikaze crazy. Once he gets the ball, he just plays full tilt, and he does not protect himself very well. But you want to talk about a game breaker. That guy is the game breaker in the National Football League. So offensively, to me, they're definitely more dangerous than they were a year ago. And defensively, they had, just one rocky game to me in 118-degree temperatures in San Diego. Oh, come on. And they're all getting IVs at halftime. I'm not going to hold that against them.
Are you giving them excuses right now?
Yeah, I think he is.
I'm not. I'm just saying I said they were going to go 15-1 because I don't have that much respect for San Francisco or Arizona. And I know they got to play those 4 games coming up.
They're going 15-1 this year.
I got them going 15-1. And they're going to have close games, close division games. They might have close games with St. Louis, for all I know, just because that's what happens in this league. But I believe they can win the rest of their regular season games.
I don't think they're going 15-1. You made some good points. The one thing I noticed about the offense, Russell Wilson is playing at a high level. You cannot doubt that. I would like to see them feed the beast more, not just Skittles. Give Marshawn the ball more. He is an absolute monster. And I think they need to ride that wave. If you have questions about the receivers, Percy Harvin not showing up in the fourth quarter, maybe it's fatigue, injury, being banged up, you got to give Marshawn the ball and ride that wave. Defensively, they're just as talented. I agree with Steven. They're just as talented. But there's something about the bully on the block after he gets in a fight with a kid who's not scared. And right now, that bully doesn't look like the same bully he was last year. And I agree, they're still good. They're just not as good. The question is, are they as good as last year? Do I think they're going to go 15-1? I don't think so.
Michael Robinson said the same thing, though.
Do I think they have a chance to win the Super Bowl?
About it. And I don't know,
he said they're losing something. They lost something in the locker room.
In the locker room. And he was talking about himself as their fullback, obviously, just retired. And those 2 veteran players who went to Jacksonville, Clemens and Red Bryant. Okay, and he was strong. He didn't even think they'd get, to the AFC, the NFC Championship game.
Those are strong words from a former player. But I think that they do have the talent to get to the NFC Championship game and steal the Super Bowl. But here's the thing. If they take a couple crucial losses, some close ones, that's going to change the complexion of that team. And it's going to change not just the complexion of the team, but the perception of everybody else who's playing against them. That's all it is. Once you get into that scuffle with the bully who beats everybody up and you realize, oh, he has a weak jaw, I can swing my right with my eyes closed and knock him down.
Okay, does the bully have a weak jaw?
There's a few weaknesses. There is. That defense flies around, but there is some pockets where you can move the ball around.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I predicted before the season that the Seattle Seahawks would probably go 13-3 as opposed to 15-1. I'm just looking at their schedule right now, guys. Here's what I'm thinking. You got a Monday night game at Washington. You've got a game later on in the season at San Francisco, at Philadelphia, at Arizona. I see the Seahawks losing 2 of those games.
Wow.
I don't see them losing any of their games at home. I see them losing about 2 more road games. And if there was a home game they would lose, I would have to say it's probably to Arizona on November 23rd.
All right, we got to move the...
That's a home game, you said?
You said at
that's
Arizona.
A home game.
You said at Arizona, so that's a home game?
No, I'm sorry. They're playing Arizona November 23rd, but they're at Arizona December 21st. They're going to lose one of those games.
Okay, they did lose to Arizona at home late last year when I think they were a little in cruise control.
All right, we got to move on, gentlemen. Late in the fourth quarter, we're still talking about the Seahawks, though. Late in the fourth quarter of that game between Broncos and Seattle, Denver was down 17-12 and facing 3rd and 11 from Seattle. Manning threw a pass to Welker. Can we see the video? Cam Chancellor jumped up and intercepted the ball, and Welker got blasted. Thank you. The hit was ruled legal, but should it have been? You've seen this play, have you not?
Yes, I have seen it.
All right.
It was legal. I don't understand what the big deal is. And the thing about it, I'm a receiver, so most people would think...
I'm surprised.
You would lean on the side of throwing the flag. I was a guy, when I got hit, I'm talking about blasted. I get up, dap the guy up. If there's a flag thrown, I say, I don't think that was a flag. keep playing ball.
Really?
That's the type of individual I am. Maybe it's because I was raised by a man who was a free safety, a hard-hitting free safety. So I respect that old school style of the game. What makes Earl Thomas better than most safeties is his anticipation and him tracking the ball, tracking the player. When his mind says go, let's get to a place, he can get to that place faster than most athletes.
Yeah.
So why would you try to stop him from doing that? And that's what this truly is saying, hey, don't take those type of shots. Once he beelines and commits to a hit and a target, say Cam didn't get up and get that ball. It's going to be a bang-bang play. It's going to be spontaneous. So I really don't see anything wrong with it. And I think people are a little more sensitive because the hit was on Wes Welker, and we know he's had some concussion issues, which is understandable. And I'm very sensitive to that.
Do you think Earl would be savvy enough to think, it's Wes Welker, I'm going to level him one way or the other? Like I'm going to deliver a blow just because he's had 3 concussions in 10 months.
I don't think he's thinking it like that. I think Earl is saying, I don't care who this player is. I don't care if he's had concussion issues or if he's new in this league. I'm going to lower my boom the same way I lowered on anybody else.
All right, Stephen A.
Hey, listen. I had no problem with the hit. You know me. I mean, listen, I'm looking at it right there. You know, I mean, he's coming in Wes Welker's path. Could he have avoided hitting Wes Welker? Sure. But when you're out there, and especially when who are you? You're the Legion of Boom. Why? Because you lower the boom on people. It's what you do. It's what your reputation is. It's how you send a message to everybody that you're coming. I don't even understand how people can question it from this perspective. Hasn't it proven to work for the Seattle Seahawks? Are they not the reigning defending Super Bowl champions? They're not the entire complexion of the Super Bowl, get formulated on the opening possession for the Denver Broncos when Cam Chancellor laid that hit on Thomas? Is that not what happened? Wasn't it from that moment that we knew Denver was in a world of trouble? I mean, outside of the botch snap that went into, the end zone and all that. In the end, what it comes down to is that the Legion of Boom love to hit. It's what they love to do. Okay? And any chance that they get to hit you, they're going to hit you. I'm more concerned, Skip, about where they hit. Like, I don't want to see somebody get their knees taken out. I'm very sensitive to that because that's extreme, and you should have decency to know better. Like Dustin Keller got hurt in a preseason game for Miami last year. That really ticked me off. I forgot who it was. I think it's the guy that Peyton Manning got in his face.
DJ Swearinger.
Yeah, it was Swearinger. That really ticked me off. So I look at stuff like that, and I say, no, that's not a problem. Of course, the headshots, that's a problem. But from the neck down to the thigh area, if you could get a clean shot on a dude on a football field, by all means, bravo.
Okay. My problem here is with the double standard of this non-rule. And I think from what I read yesterday, this will be revisited by the competition committee, and maybe by next year this will be a rule. Because you obviously can't hit a defenseless receiver, but that's after the receiver has caught the football. Well, I have issues with that because I don't know, maybe 9 times out of 10 I have issues with it because it doesn't look like football anymore.
You're right.
Okay? And you're fine with it, and you're a receiver. So why would you call it that way just because you have the football when I can argue that the more defenseless receiver was Wes Welker on this play?
Didn't have the football at all.
He's looking back over his shoulder like, where's the ball? And probably out of the corner of his eye, peripheral, he at least probably knows at that split second it has been picked off.
Yeah.
Boom! He gets it right, and it's hard not to hit Wes Welker in the head.
Right.
Because he's so short.
He's so tiny.
How can you not catch part of his helmet?
Right.
And fortunately, he had a split second to react, and it looks like he's falling. He's trying to go backwards away from the blow, and he was okay. God bless him. Thanks for that.
Right.
But to me, you can't have it both ways. I wouldn't call either way a penalty. But if you're going to call it one way with the ball, then you have to. It would seem you would want to protect the guy without the ball even more than the guy with the ball.
100%. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Another thing that frustrates me about this rule is I remember when I came in, linebackers, safeties, pregame, whether it's in practice, we're facing the team, fast receivers, big receivers, explosive receivers, you would hear this. If they come across the middle, send them a message. And 10 years ago, that was fine.
Yep.
I still get goosebumps to this day when I hear that. I think that's football. But you can't say that now. If a guy's running across the middle, he's not looking, you can't clip him or send that message physically. Yep. And that used to be the game. And I think that still should be a part. But I agree, Stephen A. Smith, you can't aim for the head or the legs. But I feel it's all fair. When you're aiming for the shoulder, the chest, the body, you can hit them wherever you can, except for something that's going to injure their career or ruin their career. But when it comes to the old school style of football, these rule changes, they make it a lot different and a lot more difficult for the defenders.
Have you had any concussions?
Lingerie.
Never, not necessarily lingerie, but I feel you. But no, I haven't had any concussions. Right. And I've taken some shots.
Nate Burleson, our NFL analyst, hanging out for the day. We're talking NBA next. You can't sit in on that.
Why not?
Or you know more than
My brother played in the NBA.
Do you know more than Stephen Anthony?
I do know more than Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, uh-oh. Here we go. In a series of tweets, NBA Hall of Famer Magic Johnson said he met with embattled Atlanta Hawks general manager Danny Ferry and said he respected and appreciated Ferry's apology. Just had a heart-to-heart meeting with Hawks GM Danny Ferry. He apologized for his comments about Luol Deng and the African-American community. In our meeting, Danny Ferry's apology was very sincere. I have a lot of respect for Danny because he called and wanted to talk about how his comments offended so many people. After our long meeting, I think he deserves a second chance, whether it's with the Hawks or another team. Ferry currently is on an indefinite leave of absence from the Hawks after his inflammatory remarks about the then free agent Luol Deng were made public in August. Magic also tweeted advice to the Hawks CEO Steve Koonin that the team should hire Dominique Wilkins as a high-level executive. All right, Stephen A. Magic received a call from Danny Ferry, from my understanding, because he wanted to explain his side of the story. Magic, after the phone call, gives his quote-unquote blessing. So my question for you is, how much of an impact will that have?
I don't know if it'll have much of an impact in Atlanta, but I do think it should have a profound impact league-wide as it pertains to the hireability, for lack of a better word, of Danny Ferry. Danny Ferry should not be condemned or put into some kind of purgatory where he's deemed unhireable. He should not be an individual that's labeled a racist, and because of that, he can't get an executive position in the NBA. You know, I've spoken to Danny Ferry. I've spoken to Billy King, the general manager for the Brooklyn Nets, who played with Danny Ferry at Duke, who recruited Danny Ferry to come to Duke with him, who's been his best friend since they were 15 years of age, who vouches for him big time. I've spoken to numerous players who played under Danny Ferry, who happened to be black, while Danny Ferry was an executive in Cleveland. I spoke to the camp of LeBron James when there was rumors out there where people were saying that he had a problem with Danny Ferry, only to hear from LeBron James camp that they had absolutely no problem with Danny Ferry. In the interest of fairness, and that's what we're talking about here, to label Danny Ferry in this way, I think is cruel and irresponsible. However, Danny Ferry to some degree assisted in bringing that upon himself by reading the email or the scouting report that he did about Luol Deng without editing out those comments that were so offensive. And as a result, even though he shouldn't be labeled a racist and he shouldn't be refrained from receiving another job as an executive in the NBA, in the city of Atlanta, Magic Johnson and others are going to have to respect that they do have the right to feel like he's not the guy they want. Because the one thing that comes out about Magic Johnson's tweets, Kip Bayless, and he may not know this because he's not an NBA insider, even though he has profound contacts, and Magic Johnson is as conscientious a brother as they are. The bottom line is that Danny Ferry's relationship with Dominique Wilkins, from what I'm told, wasn't always the greatest. Danny Ferry came in there destined to carry out Barry Levinson's, the owner that's walking away from it because of his incendiary email, or what people perceive to be incendiary. This guy came in there with a mandate from Levinson to change the culture. And one of the things that Danny Ferry didn't do, that I don't believe was very smart of him, is that he didn't ingratiate himself with Dominique Wilkins. Dominique Wilkins wasn't nearly as included in the decision-making process as he was before Danny Ferry arrived. Had Danny Ferry ingratiated himself more and valued Dominique Wilkins more, then perhaps he would not be in this situation as we speak. So I definitely found it interesting that Magic Johnson put the tweet out that he put about Dominique Wilkins, because if Dominique Wilkins is going to be in an elevated position in terms of basketball operations, he doesn't need to be working in concert with Danny Ferry, because when Danny Ferry had the opportunity to do that, he didn't take full advantage of it. But in no way does that mean that Danny Ferry should be ostracized and that Danny Ferry shouldn't get another executive position in the NBA. I just don't believe it should be in Atlanta any longer.
Okay. I'm enlightened by a number of things you said, and I want to point out to our viewers, you said this from the very start, because you had talked to many, many sources, maybe not Magic, but many sources who said, no, Danny Ferry is not a racist and he should not be ostracized. You said it from the first day we tackled this topic. And obviously, Magic Johnson's voice resonates, it reverberates around this country when it comes to these kind of issues. That was a powerful endorsement.
Right.
Because Magic went so far as to say that he wouldn't mind, I'm paraphrasing the tweet, but that he wouldn't even mind it if Danny Ferry returned to the Atlanta Hawks. While there are many people, as we know, we've talked about in Atlanta, who would not love that. Yeah. So, I'm going to ask you one more time to help me through one point here that sticks in my craw. Talk me through this. I'm with you that Danny Ferry should not be labeled a lifelong racist and never have a shot at another job in the NBA. I get all that. But I read multiple reports last night that the NBA is not pursuing its investigation of where this phrase came from and why it was in the scouting report and what was the origin of this phrase that Luol Deng, as we know, has a little African in him. That little bit of analysis that Danny Ferry read on the conference call to his many minority investors. Why would the NBA push that on the back burner, if not sweep it under the carpet? Because it still troubles me where it came from and why Danny Ferry would think it would be okay to read that phrase that he had gleaned, as I get this, from a source in another team's front office. Am I right about that?
Well, first of all, the other team's front office was Cleveland.
Okay.
Secondly, the NBA knows full well who the scouting report was from. They know who wrote that. They have it. Okay, just because they didn't advertise it to all of us doesn't mean that they don't know, and doesn't mean that the matter has been dealt with. And when you consider that we're fresh off the whole Donald Sterling fiasco and how that threatened to sully the brand, from a sheer business perspective, we can understand that while the NBA has no doubt handled this matter, that they're not interested in publicizing it and addressing it in a public forum and making it or contributing to the news headlines out there, because it compromises the bottom line. Let's not act like we're oblivious or ignorant to business practices. You're going to do what you need to do to protect your bottom line as best as you possibly can, particularly if you know that from an insulated perspective, you are addressing the matter and you've addressed it expeditiously. So on that level, I definitely understand where you're coming from, but I understand that the NBA knows who wrote what they wrote, knows where the scouting report came from, and knows that and obviously that they're dealing with it. In the case of Danny Ferry, excuse me, he's simply somebody that made a mistake. And the folks who are black that are out there, and some white folks that want Danny Ferry. I mean, you got owners in Atlanta that want Danny Ferry gone. They have their reasons, and their reasons are valid. I'm not in any way trying to say that the minority owners in the mix don't have legitimate reasons for wanting Danny Ferry out of Atlanta. Yeah. But it shouldn't be, number one, that he's a racist, and number two, it shouldn't be this seemingly clandestine but yet public campaign to label him a racist in order to get rid of him. And that's why the quotes from Magic Johnson are powerful, because it's about fairness. And that's what we're talking about. Okay. And the NBA is sensitive to that as well.
Last thought on this. I appreciate, bless you, I appreciate what you're saying about the NBA trying to keep an internal investigation internal, keep it out of the public spotlight. But there's quite another matter called public trust in the wake of the Donald Sterling incident issue that I'd like to know a little more. Help me out here. You know, tell me, NBA, what happened? What are you doing about this?
But the problem with you wanting to know more is that they're not going to have the luxury of dealing with Danny Ferry and the isolated incidents involving the Atlanta Hawks, the scouting report, the emails, etc. Everything is going to be lumped into the bowl created by Donald Sterling. And that's what they're trying to get beyond. And I can't blame them for that.
All right. You leave it there? You have something else to say?
No, I don't. But I'm not satisfied.
You're not satisfied.
I'm waiting and seeing.
You never are.
This is, well, you know what? That's a good point.
I commute from Schenectady to Manhattan. It's about a 6-hour round trip. But it's cool. My family loves Schenectady, and I love books on tape. It's a lot of time to spend driving alone. On the other hand, Schenectady is really close to the highway, so...
Life is a long drive. Make sure your car is along for the ride. Mobile Super Motor Oil is formulated to help prevent sludge and protect against wear. Mobile Super, for long engine life.
The discussion of the best receiver in the NFL usually starts in Detroit, Megatron. Calvin Johnson put on a show in week 1. Remember that? He had 164 yards, 2 touchdowns over the Giants. In his 8th NFL season, 4-time Pro Bowler already has 68 receiving touchdowns, 10,000 yards receiving over his career. He also holds the NFL single-season receiving record, say that fast, with nearly 2,000 yards in 2012. Nate Burleson hanging out here. Again, we appreciate it, analyst.
Thank you.
You played with him, so we obviously want some firsthand knowledge. In your opinion, how good is Megatron? The best?
I think just by asking the question, you got to phrase it differently. It's not how good is he, it's how great is he. For my peers, my time, I played in the NFL, he's the GOAT, G-O-O-T. He's the greatest of our time. And that's my time. Now, I understand there's some legends that have came before him. There's Jerry Rice, there's Michael Irvin. We've talked about this. In my opinion, if Calvin Johnson has longevity by his side, and he wants to play that long, no doubt in my mind he will go down as the best receiver ever to play this game. And she just read off some stats, and people can Google stats, so I'll let you do that at home. But what I'm going to tell you about is what I've seen firsthand. And it's going to sound like I'm creating a fictional video game character. Power, speed, agility, versatility, the ability to play outside and inside. Can go get the long ball, can run past you, run underneath you. He can run through you. He can break tackles. He can shake tackles. He can high point the ball. And I think probably the biggest attribute that some people know about but haven't seen firsthand, he is one of the most humble and hungry athletes I have ever been around. I mean, an absolute pleasure to watch. And it was a joy. I walked in as kind of the big brother type and ended up leaving after 4 years learning more about how to approach your job than anybody I've ever been around as a player. A small example of that, I've told this story a couple of times. I remember having a cookout at my house. A whole bunch of football players watching NBA basketball and a lot of fried food and knowing that we had a day off, but we had to go in. And we're going to sweat this out. We had a long night. Let's sweat this out. We all meet at the same time on a day off. We agreed. Let's go sweat this out. Everybody started walking towards the sauna because that's what we do. Football players hop in the sauna. Calvin Johnson walks opposite direction. He's headed towards the weight room. I said, hey, Calvin, what are you doing? He said, I'm about to go sweat this out. We said we're sweating it out. I'm going to sweat it out. Curious, just to see what he means, I walk in the weight room. He's by himself on the treadmill. And not your traditional treadmill, on the manual treadmill. Sweating everything that he put in his body out because that's how good he wants to be. And that's the standard he sets for himself. And I remember at that moment thinking, he's just different. And he doesn't have to be a rah-rah guy. He doesn't speak a lot. He doesn't talk a lot. I mean, I barely got him to celebrate when I was there. But one thing I do know is he was blessed with a special stick when he was created. And he has taken those skills and went from good to great, great to excellent, and is chasing phenomenal.
So he will, in your opinion, go down as the greatest receiver ever when all is said and done?
Yes, I do believe so.
Stephen A., you agree?
I don't know if he'll go down as the greatest of all time. I definitely think he'll have a chance. You got to remember, he's so big time to me. I actually forget his name is Calvin Johnson. I'm so used to calling him Megatron because I just love that name, number one. The only thing I love just as much as that name is his commercials with P. Diddy, where he's Megatron and P. Diddy's Calvin Johnson. I love that commercial. I wish they bring him. I wish they bring it back. But I got to tell you, I think that when we're sitting there and throwing all of these laudables on him, while valid, Nate, and completely undeniable, and you are definitely the expert on this subject. Notice how you were sitting on the side for the basketball segment. That's where you belong. But right here, you're the expert. You're here, the expert right here. I will tell you that you're right on the money, and I won't refute anything that you say. But I think you're giving far too much credit to just his abilities, but not his size. This dude is 6'5", about 240. That does play a factor, because there are times when I'm looking at Calvin Johnson, even with those long legs and that size, there's somebody right there with him. He's a great route runner. We understand that. He's got great hands. We understand that. He plays well under pressure. He's got mad skills. We know all of that. But there are plenty of times I see defenders, he's not necessarily shaking them off, evading them, blowing past them or anything. They're right there. They just don't have the physical prowess to overcome 6'5", 240. When I watch Jerry Rice, when I watch Terrell Owens, when I watch some of these guys, and I'm certainly not saying he can't be better than these guys. He's not going to be better than these guys. But I go back to the days of the Lynn Swans of the world, the John Stallworths of the world, the Mark Clayton, Mark Super Duper, Dan Marino throwing them the football. I'm watching an abundance of the playmaker, Jerry Rice. The list goes on and on. Sterling Sharp, who was big time. I'm watching so many of these guys. And I remember seeing individuals with their exceptional route running that had an ability to create space. To me, what stands out about Megatron is that half the time he's catching catches, it's with no space. He just has the physical ability to overcome suffocation and guys being right on him because they're simply too small. That's entirely different than somebody that has the speed, exceptional route running, et cetera, and find a way to make the most out of the little they have. Calvin Johnson has been blessed, not just because of his athletic ability, his work ethic, his humility. All of that stuff is absolutely right, Nate. But the other thing about him is that he's physically gifted. Skip, it's almost like LeBron James. You look at other guys, a Derrick Rose, a Russell Westbrook, they're phenomenal. But LeBron is a freak of nature because he's 6'8", 250, 260. Yep. That's how I view Megatron.
Hold up, Skip. Let me just slide in real quick. I need to channel my inner SAS, SAS. Okay. That's my inner Stephen A. Smith. Hold up, Mr. Stephen A. Smith. Can I ask you a question? Question, please. Question. If separation is all that you can talk about,
your imitation is not good.
Okay, I'm working on it. But if separation is all that you can pinpoint, how hard is it to get separation when you have a corner underneath and a safety over top majority of the time? Majority. There's only a couple cornerbacks in this league that will face him one-on-one with a single safety. So, yeah, he's not going to get major separation. They got a cornerback playing underneath because he told the safety. But is that a
rhetorical question? No, or do you really want an answer?
It's an honest question because you're saying he's not getting enough separation, but he always has corner safety help, unless you go up against a bold enough Patrick Peterson or somebody like that. One-on-one coverage, I guarantee you'll get 5 yards on anybody.
I'm not denying that. I'm simply saying to you that the other greats had that issue too. All I'm trying to say is that Calvin Johnson has 6'5", 240 to rely upon. I'm not taking anything away from him, just like I wouldn't take anything away from the greatness of LeBron James. But there's a difference between a Derrick Rose that has incredible speed and can blow by you with athleticism that's off the charts, a Russell Westbrook, the same thing, when they're legitimately 6'3", 6'4", as opposed to a LeBron who's 6'8", 260. He's a locomotive coming at you. I'm looking at Megatron, Calvin Johnson, And I'm saying to you, when I look at Jerry Rice, the playmaker, Michael Irvin, and others, I see dudes that can do certain things. They had to work under the same conditions, but they didn't have 6'5", 240 to rely upon. So what I see them doing, even though I see Calvin Johnson doing it too, I think it's tougher for them to pull off because they don't have 6'5", 240 to rely upon like Calvin Johnson does. That's all I'm saying.
Bayless.
I'm not taking anything away from
that.
them. They just don't have that to rely on.
Okay, it's time for some perspective here from the wise older member of the
Would that be
panel
you?
here. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, good.
I do like, Mr. Smith, your LeBron analogy, except it really doesn't quite apply even to this man. This man is clearly, by far, the most gifted receiver who has ever come along in the history of this league.
Yep.
And LeBron, for all of his physical gifts, has never been the smoothest, purest shooter we've ever seen. So he's not the total package. He has worked hard on that and improved it dramatically, but he still occasionally struggles with this, even from the free throw line. Calvin doesn't struggle with anything.
Right.
There's no physical attribute where you can say, well, he's a little deficient here. He needs to improve this part. There's no improving any part of his game. That's tangible. Now, I'm going to raise an issue here. The intangibles I still am suspicious of. I'm not sold on Megatron's intangibles. This is why, and our viewers can never get this through many of their heads, this is why I always say, if you ask me what receiver in history I want on my team, I want the playmaker. I want Michael Irvin. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I covered him through his years in Dallas. He was the leader of teams that should have won 4 straight Super Bowls, and they won 3 out of 4 and came real close to winning the other one. He was the rocket fuel. He was the man who carried them by making the biggest plays in the biggest moments on 3rd and 8 in Philly or New York or Washington. He's the guy in December in the cold that you wanted not only in your locker room, in your huddle, but you wanted him out there on the flank because you could just throw it to 88, and he made Troy Aikman look pretty good. I've said this before. I feel like Michael Irvin helped Troy. I'll go this far. He put Troy in the Hall of Fame. That's how great he was. Because when it was time, you just throw it at 88. He's going to figure out how to catch the ball. Is he as gifted or was he as gifted as this man? No, it's not even close.
Right.
But I still would take him over this man because I watched him lead on and off the field teams to what should have been 4 straight Super Bowls. I'm not sure Calvin Johnson has that in him. I'm not sure it's in his nature. You went through him in the early years in Detroit. Is he too nice? Is he too humble? And whatever that dog is in him, it started to come out. And I believe you had something to do with being a little bit of a big brother to him, a little bit of a mentor. Encourage him. Come on, let it fly. Let it flow. And he started to, and now he's starting to play a little angrier, and it's getting scarier and scarier for the opposition. But I haven't seen enough. I need to see this man, and I know it's just receivers, so you're limited in what you can do. But Michael wasn't limited in what he did for his football team. He took it over. He was the man on those Super Bowl teams, and Calvin is going to have to show me he's that guy.
There's something to say about leadership, but more importantly, rings. I can agree. As an athlete growing up, being a fan of every sport, I've always looked at the winners that won the world championships just a little bit better and a little bit higher standard, held them on a little bit more of a pedestal than I did the ones who didn't win, the Barkleys or maybe the Carmelos. But as an athlete who played with Calvin, I started to just embrace the moment and realize that I was waking up and I was seeing greatness every day.
Sure.
And I said the same thing when I played with Randy Moss. I thought, there's no way I can get any better than this. I'm playing second fiddle to Randy Moss. This is awesome. I could retire now. A few years later, I'm lined up next to Calvin, and I thought, this is it. This is the cream of the crop. If you can build or create a man that's supposed to play defensive end, but he runs just as fast as the fastest receiver and jumps just as high as...
He does it all.
He does it all. So I thought to myself, I'm not going to wait for him to win a championship to claim him as great or say that he can be great. I'm going to give him his greatness now because I'm seeing it, and I'm okay with that. Now, if the rings come along, of course, that would stamp it. And everybody, the validation would be great. But if they don't, I'm still willing to say, as a society, we need not put so much, I guess, emphasis on winning a championship and just giving the individuals that are showing us greatness applause and praise.
During his weekly radio appearance with ESPN Milwaukee, Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers had a simple yet direct message for Packers fans who are panicking over the team's 1-2 record and his own, admittedly, slow start.
5 letters here, just for everybody out there in Packerland and yourself today. RELAX. Relax. We're going to be okay. We're not playing fast enough on offense, and we're not converting enough third downs. They've played like they weren't tired. You know, when you run a no huddle, you want to tire a team out. The hope is that they'll get a little more undisciplined when they're tired, and there'll be more opportunities for lapses in coverage or assignment when they're tired. But we didn't convert enough first downs to even get them tired.
So Green Bay is in last place in the NFC North, and the Packers have been outscored 79-54. So we talk about his 5-letter word. We're going to ask our folks here at the desk what the 5-letter word should actually be. Nate Burleson still hanging out. Stephen A. Smith. Should the 5-letter word for the Packers be panic?
No, I disagree with that. They shouldn't panic. It's just 3 games into the season. The NFC North is up for grabs. We don't know how consistent Detroit is going to be. We certainly don't expect the Chicago Bears to be consistent. And the Minnesota Vikings have regressed to the realms of irrelevancy. It's just that simple. So because of that, I look at the Green Bay Packers with the bad man that he is, Aaron Rodgers. He is certainly capable of lifting them from their doldrums, but he has to play better. When you look at Aaron Rodgers right now, 62.7% completion percentage. He's on pace for that to be the lowest of his career. He's only passed for 697 yards these first 3 games combined, got 5 touchdowns, just 1 interception, a quarterback rating of 95. But I look at him right now and I say, even though I wouldn't go the route of panic, there are things that I'm concerned about. Green Bay's defense doesn't seem to be that much better, even though they did show up last week against Detroit. It's improved, but it needs to be significantly better. Number 2, the pressure that's brought to bear on Aaron Rodgers. He seems to be scrambling a little bit too much. I don't know how well they're protecting him. Okay. Number 3, and more importantly, the running game of led by Eddie Lacy and those boys. Eddie Lacy is your leading rusher. He has a combined 113 yards in 3 games. That's just putrid. You need more. You definitely need more from Eddie Lacy. You need more from Starks. You need more from this running game. You need more from Jordy Nelson as well, but that might fall in line with the level of protection. And I think that another reason why folks should be concerned, not in panic mode, but concerned, is that one of the problems is Aaron Rodgers does appear a bit too relaxed. He does appear to be, just a mere bag of shells, no big deal, just relax, etc., etc. Now, I saw and read news about other choices that he has made as it pertains to his lady.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Very
You know
nice.
what? That's
now,
old
that
news.
might be why he's relaxed.
Oh.
No, but I'm saying, I didn't know. So my point is, now that I know, trust me, I am not insulting him by any stretch of the imagination. I am
So you can understand why he's so relaxed.
I'm just saying, he's very relaxed.
You know what?
The problem
You're a
is,
mess.
that's not what the fans need to see on Sunday afternoon. But I do understand why he's relaxed.
Burleson,
I really do.
Your take.
Well, after I heard this audio, I was inspired by a French Montana song to write a little poetry.
Uh-oh.
Don't panic. Don't panic. The fans fell in love with him winning. So just relax. It's only the beginning. That's it. It's only the beginning of the season. Yeah, it was easy, a little something.
Are you being sarcastic?
I'm a poet.
You reach it a little bit, but it's okay.
I think you're being sarcastic.
It's all right.
Yeah, a little something. I had to switch some words up.
It's not necessary, but it's all right.
It's a little
It's not
something.
necessary.
It made me uncomfortable, but go ahead.
But listen, you didn't know where I was going with that. But here's the thing. The Packers haven't missed the playoffs since 2008. Like, when hasn't your resume gave the fans or people concerned with your team a little bit of comfort? Since I've been in the league, they've been contenders every year. And just like Stephen A. said, the NFC North, it looks like it can be up for grabs. Week 1, I would have said that the Lions had a strong chance of taking it and running with it. Last couple weeks, they haven't played as consistent as they want. You got the Bears, whose defense, they're depleted because of injury.
Yep.
They don't have enough wisdom and experience back there with those young guys. Maybe age is kicking in. Yeah, offensively, Cutler and his weapons are pretty powerful. But then again, you go to Minnesota, rookie quarterback, Adrian Peterson not playing. That's a little bit different. So now you have the Packers that are really in the driver's seat, even though they're in the last place in their division.
I must say, I was going to say some really nice things about Aaron Rodgers, and I was going to back him that everybody should relax. But after I heard my friend Stephen A. Smith begin to make more and more excuses, it's every day with the excuses. It's never about the bad man who last Sunday at Detroit was just pure bad. By his standards,
1A.
that was shockingly bad.
He was bad, Skip. He was bad.
And I do remind you, at Seattle, for reasons I cannot fathom, nor can you, he refused or opted not to go at Richard Sherman. And I lost some respect.
Skip,
Stephen
give me credit for that. I was mad at him for that.
I feel you on that.
Okay, but I can't sit here and say, there's no running game, there's no defense, there's no protection. It's this, it's that. He's too relaxed.
Yeah, because he make a decision,
he's too
so
relaxed.
he's too relaxed.
Stop it. I just can't take it. This man has played poor football by his standards, and I'm going to leave it at that. That's all I know for now.
All right, Stephen A. says, don't panic, be concerned.
I say don't panic. Just relax. He said it best.
Floyd Mayweather, the executive producer of Showtime's Quote All Access reality series, was ordered to appear at the Nevada State Athletic Commission's monthly meeting on Tuesday to answer questions about scenes in the second episode of the series leading up to his rematch with Marcos Maidana. The episode contained scenes that showed unsafe training conditions at Mayweather's Las Vegas gym, as well as marijuana being smoked in his presence by a group of girlfriends at his Las Vegas home. Mayweather testified that both were staged for the television show, saying, with all access, we're able to chop and edit footage the way we want. Showtime declined to comment on that report. So, Stephen A., are you saying, or do you believe, rather, that this was staged?
Some of it. I don't put it past Floyd Mayweather Jr. or his camp to put themselves in a position where they think that whatever they do, no matter how outrageous it may or obnoxious it may appear, sometimes that sells in the sport of boxing. But let's be clear about something here. It's not to be excused. When I saw it, I was incredibly alarmed. I texted some people that I know there and was like, what the hell are y'all doing? But I didn't hear back from anybody. I will tell you that, when I saw the marijuana being smoked, I was shocked because I have been around Floyd Mayweather in both public and private settings where things like that would never be tolerated. I was shocked to see that. The one thing that I don't believe when he talked about it being staged is the fighting. How you go until you can't go anymore. I've never seen it, never personally witnessed it, but it's incredibly believable that that kind of environment takes place because the attitude is that we can withstand and endure what the average common fighter can't. And if that means going 31 straight minutes for a round and going on and on and on until somebody can't go anymore, definitely I think that that's a situation. I don't think that was made up. I don't think that was something that was fabricated for the cameras, for the all access on Showtime. But in the end, it's hard to decipher what is real and what is not. What we do know is that it was incredibly alarming to see. It was incredibly irresponsible to air. And obviously he was called on the carpet for it by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. I believe that was them. And I don't blame them for doing so. I'm concerned about what I'm seeing. I'm concerned about the Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, the Floyd Mayweather, once this is all over. People around him, a lot of these folks I've seen, and some of them I've known, like his security detail and guys like this, people just doing their job, working hard, trying to do the right things. But they are there to serve at the pleasure of Money Mayweather. He's the man that runs the show. They have to do ultimately what he dictates they do, so the buck ultimately stops with him. So when we see something like this, and it's incredibly alarming, there is no need for us to look any further than Floyd Mayweather himself. And I think that at this particular moment in time, Skip, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm growing very, very concerned about him because the person that I see was all about. I can't speak to the things that alleged to have happened. He was obviously convicted, pled guilty with domestic violence. He had to do his time. Yep. I sat down and did an interview with him for SportsCenter. He spoke about that. There are certain things that he denied, certain things that he admits, but in the end, he deserves to be criticized for the position that he put himself in. Whatever level of truth gets attached to that, I'm not here to give him a pass on that. He owns that. The Floyd Mayweather I know and love, I'm talking about strictly the boxer. And the boxer that I see, I don't see the same discipline. I don't see the same focus.
Yep.
I see a guy that's allowing himself to be entirely too distracted by all of this stuff around him.
Yep.
And in the end, he has nobody to blame but himself, because he is the one that's calling the shots. I have never seen somebody, a professional athlete, more fixated on power than him. He loves calling the shots, which means that the buck stops with him. He's responsible for all of this. No pass this way.
I respect you for expressing your public alarm over a man that you do love. And I respect your love for him as a boxer. But all of a sudden, you're not sure whether he's a boxer or just more of an entertainer now. And that's my question. Because when I first read this story last night, I must admit, I chuckled, because you're often talking about how Floyd Mayweather Jr. is the greatest defensive tactician we've ever seen in the sport. And
yes,
this was ingenious defense to say, oh, it was all for show.
Yeah.
We made it all up. Yep. But now you're telling me that the two scenes in question in All Access, one you buy and one you're not sure about, because you don't think Floyd's a marijuana smoker. That's not what he does. So you're saying, okay, you're buying that he faked that scene. I'm not sure why. I don't know what good. Does that sell more pay-per-view buys? Does that make people say,
how does it benefit?
Floyd, yeah, he's got his girls there and they're all smoking marijuana. I'm not sure what the message is. That does what for his persona?
Nothing.
For his pay-per-view buys? I don't know what. But again, the other was a pretty serious charge, as the commission would see it, that in your gym, the doghouse as they call it, you're going to let these guys basically fight to the death. I mean, it's not literal death, although it could come to that, because from what was described, I did not watch All Access, but I read about these scenes, and a couple of guys got mad at each other, and one guy's brother stepped in, and they were basically, it felt like fighting to the death. And the Nevada Commission is saying, no, you can't do that. And so you're saying you buy that part of it. So it makes me think, well, maybe I should buy the marijuana scene too.
Well, let me say this, Skip. First of all, handlers, a business manager like a Leonard Ellaby, who's very thorough and good at what he does, even though who knows what that relationship is going to end up being based on the reports that you're reading. We all know that Al Heyman is legitimate. But the bottom line is simply this. I don't know what Floyd Mayweather to expect at this juncture from fight to fight.
Yeah.
He is still a magician and a genius in the ring. That's what I love about him. I also love the fact that he is about his business. He is about making money and calling the shots, because in the sport of boxing, devoid of any kind of representation in terms of a fighting union, a boxing union or something along those lines, I applaud a guy that has the genius about him to step out on his own and find a way to do what promoters and others were trying to do to make money off of him. Now he keeps the money for himself. I applaud all of that. And when I talk about my love for Floyd Mayweather, I'm talking about the boxer, I'm talking about the businessman. I do not love a guy that is sitting out there acting the way that he's acting with a little daughter right near there, hearing all of that. I do not love the stuff that I saw in All Access. A matter of fact, the Floyd Mayweather I've been around is a hell of a lot better than that. I don't know what's going on with this guy, but I will tell you this. We need to be, for those of us who want him to win, because I don't want him to lose to Pacquiao.
All right.
Let me be clear. I want him to beat Pacquiao.
We got to get up out of here.
I believe that Floyd Mayweather, the rate he's going, if he don't get his act together, he's going to lose.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to First Take. Nate Burleson here. You were here for 2 days.
2 days.
You enjoyed it. You were a NFL analyst, a great debater. So I'm assuming in this last segment, you're going to tell us where you're going to work or where you're going to play.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that right now. I appreciate you putting the pressure on me, but I did enjoy my time here. I can't see myself doing this. Only time will tell. I did realize that...
you cannot do a Stephen A. Smith impression.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to work on that, though. But I realized that Stephen A. Smith is a kitty cat, though. You know, I got this picture that he was this big lion, fierce when it comes to issues and debates, but he's just a kitty cat.
Please, Skip loves that.
When Nate was running over you.
Nate just messed up, and here I was on the verge of reaching out to the bosses saying they need to hire you. You done messed up.
Hey, my bad,
you done
man.
messed up.
Well, you know, hey, I got to stick to my statement. But, I appreciate it, though. It was awesome. And when you guys are in Seattle, I got to say this.
Good job.
If you love Italian food, please come to my restaurant.
Right.
It's Lucia in Green Lake. It's on me. Everything, I'll take care of it.
Seattle?
Yes, Cristal, whatever you need.
Okay.
It's a little bit more than football.
It's in Seattle?
In Seattle, in Green Lake. So if you come out there, reach out.
It's too damn far to fly, man.
It is far. It is far, but the food is tremendous. I promise you the truffle spaghetti is worth it.
Oh.
You know what? I'll come up there, and then we'll go to a game.
Okay, that's cool. That'll work. I'm with that.
All right. I don't know how much time we have left. Do you? Because I can't hear.
We have 15 seconds left.
We have 15 seconds. All right. For Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless and Nate Burleson, you did a great job.
You did a great job.
You did a great job. Thanks for joining us. We will see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern.